wanna give some facts and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, we had a visit from the, it was a revenue agent from the Internal Revenue Service, Department of Treasury. Stopped in on Wednesday of last week to notify us of some delinquent taxes going back to 2020 and 2021 that weren't paid, and there were unanswered notices. And so he decided to come in person, and he interviewed, since I was the only official in the office, they interviewed me and presented me with a final notice and a bill of $25,945.81, which $22,417.23 was back delinquent taxes, and the remainder was penalty and interest. They also gave us notice of we could appeal if we wanted, and after consulting with the county prosecutor and a tax attorney, it was advised to just pay it. Would be the easiest thing to do.
It was withholdings, the money was there.
The money was there.
It was
Yeah,
just,
well, I mean, we're not contesting the legitimacy of it, it was just a clerical error.
I have a question. Did this person say that we were notified of those delinquencies by certified mail?
He didn't say how.
He didn't say how?
No, he just said it was, we were notified and then never responded.
Okay, let me say something and then lead up to a question to discuss. When I was elected in this last term, the same week I was elected, I got a call from Columbus that Fred was delinquent in reports to Columbus and whatever. When I asked the board if anybody else was aware of that, we all said no. And I'm trying to think why I was, called 1 week into my term that this was happening and nobody else knew about it. I say that because I'm wondering, and I know it's a lot of paperwork, but let's just say that we were notified by certified letter or email or any other kinds. The only person who got that was the person who didn't respond to it.
yes.
So my question is, should we not all be, even though we're not fiscal officers, should we not all be getting things that come into this office that pertain to Auburn Township, where somebody would have known in 2020 that he was delinquent in all these things, where he filed in some and didn't pay, he paid some and didn't file? I mean, Dan has done, and Joni Windale have done a yeoman's job trying to catch us up. And the only person that actually knows why those things were done is Fred, who's no longer with us. But is there some kind of mechanism, whether it just be email, if something comes into Dan, email, or comes into me, email, can it not be emailed to everyone so everybody knows where we're at? If we did, I'm sure this would have never happened before I even came on the board. So that's what I'm throwing out to. Is there a way to do that? Not saying that the fiscal officer, that we should be watching everything he does, but he could be watching what we do. Everybody should have an idea of what's going on here.
Well, what you're saying is, right now, I've heard rumors to the fact that I do have an Auburn email. I've never used it. I use my own personal email. Any other emails that I have sent, either have sent my personal or to the admin email. So
Nancy emails all this stuff to us all day long, everything. Why can't we get an
Well,
email?
that's what I'm saying. If we get rid of all the personal emails in here, and just we'll have one single email, a central email that everything goes into, and then it can be copied to, and say in the header who it goes to, and it could be, and everybody can have access to that. So that's what we do in my company. We have one central email. Everything comes to everybody's desk. So, every email that comes into the company comes to my desk and comes to everybody else's desk. And then you go through the emails, and the ones that, you have to take care of, you take care of.
Well, I believe.
But everybody has access to it.
I think this decision to be the single point of contact is the decision of the fiscal officer, because he's a fiscal officer, and there's some power that goes along with that position. It certainly should be our policy, and I thought this policy was changed. Gene, you'll remember when you were your first go-around, all the mail went to private residence on Ravenna Road. And that was, as this building was getting finished up here, the clerk's office, and following when Denny Square started, this became the central
The last time
office.
Gene was here, email hadn't been invented yet, so it wasn't really a big issue.
But all
you know.
correspondence.
What is that email?
All the correspondence mail,
It's just Pony Express. wasn't
yeah,
it?
smoke signals, they all went through.
Well, you know what,
my
it
neighbor's
worked, it
house on
worked.
Ravenna Road. And then when this office got finished, when this building got finished, Denny was the next, Denny Squire moved all the operations up here, all the mail and everything.
I remember all that.
You know, electronically, did we
I don't know if
change that
that's,
policy as a change? No, but yeah, it needs to, you know, administration did not get that.
well, that's what I'm saying. The only person who got the letters, I'm assuming, that we were delinquent was the guy who was making us delinquent.
Yes, but the fiscal officer set up the point of contact. Now, Dan, going forward, I don't think you would want that.
Is that
sort of
really a
stuff.
fiscal officer, or can that not be a policy of the board of Auburn Township? I mean, and I want to make it clear, I'm not saying we need to
Absolutely,
watch the
it can
fiscal
absolutely be a
officer,
policy.
but I'm saying, had we done something different, we wouldn't be in the
Well, the
Yeah,
only thing I can think
frenzy
of,
that we're in.
if they were to do an official notification, it wouldn't be through email. They would send a registered letter.
We didn't get one.
We didn't get one.
We did not get that.
And even if we got a registered letter, who's gonna get that? The person happens to be there when the mail carrier comes.
Well, most likely.
It could
would
be, and it could be,
Nancy,
and most likely, it's gonna be Nancy unless Nancy's on vacation,
Well, Nancy would
Then
have
it
known
might be
about it, and we
Jane.
would have known about it.
Yes.
you know? Or it could be, you know, when they're cleaning the office, the, you know, cleaning person would grab it, it's gonna be whoever's there.
Again, if everything comes, like you're suggesting, if everything comes into one email and we all have access to it, that's not really stepping on the toes of the fiscal officer. That's something that the whole board, you know, he would have access to everything that we get. A lot of it is just mail you're gonna delete because it doesn't pertain to you, but at least you're getting to see it. And if anybody would have got an email on this board that said, hey, by the way, you haven't filed for 2 years on your taxes, somebody would have had a red flag and said, hey,
Okay, well,
what's going on?
Let me propose a question to Dan, and as the fiscal officer. Are there any email communications that you have coming to the fiscal officer email, or whether it's in your name or fiscal officer, that could be considered privileged information that couldn't go out to the general,
Yeah,
The general who?
I
I
get,
mean,
I
the other
get,
employees who have access to the emails coming in?
from Burnham and Flower, I get dozens of emails every day pertaining. to
Medical and all that other stuff. Okay, so there has to be, see, right there, you can't do that, you can't take, you know, people's medical information and it's coming across a group email.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just that one as an example.
Yeah, question, Dan, the representative who did visit you in person, if there was a registered communication, wouldn't they have had a tangible copy they could have produced in addition to some electronic mail?
I suppose.
I mean, is that something that should have, or could be requested just to, you know, to avoid any further muddying the waters or lack of clarification?
That's what I've heard about the IRS. Once it gets to this point, you can come and say, well, we didn't get a registered letter. Well, we don't care, I'm here now.
Well, he was supposed to interview the three of you. Did you receive a call from
I
him?
did not. No, I think he was
He
going
probably, he probably sent us registered letters, we just didn't get them.
Well, like I said, let's be honest. If you've been in Geauga County long enough, you know there's other townships that have suffered this same thing. Perfect example was Chesterland. Their guy went to jail for 20 years.
That was not the same thing.
Well,
That
the
was
trustees
quite
didn't know
different.
what was going on.
Yeah.
Did they?
That was,
That was stolen money is quite different than.
No, you're right. My
Mr.
point
Lawrence.
is that
We should know
the
about the stolen
trustees,
money. Good-
the
good
trustees
idea.
didn't know. In fact, if you'll remember, Dan knows, the first question I asked when this started is to make sure no money was stolen, and we know that there wasn't, but we didn't know that at the time.
Dan, if you were planning on stealing any money, you'd let us know, right?
You know, on the other
See?
hand, if this was no later than the second quarter of 2020, I was here at a meeting in which there was a question on the part of a warrant, and it had to do with the IRS, and I remember asking about it. And I don't know that I have the documentation now, but back at that particular point in time, you know, Fred insisted that he was current and that it was the mistake of IRS. And that was, I mean, there's probably a video on that. If someone wants to go back to the second quarter of 2020, there's probably a video at auburntownship.org.
Yeah, Fred was pretty good at giving reassurances that everything that he had been behind was caught up. And no, this was just a clerical mistake, and I don't want to get into much of his method of operation, but, well, the people that knew enough to pick up the phone and call Auburn Township and say, hey, where's my money if they didn't get paid, those people got paid. That didn't happen. People weren't calling here looking for money. It was agencies, it was organizations, it was things like that, that the paperwork was
And unfortunately, like
slow to
I
be
said,
done.
Fred's the only person that can actually answer those questions, and I don't know if he even knows.
You know, eventually, I mean, I think we did receive some warrants. It took a while, but I think we did receive some documentation that, you know, it seemed valid at the time. But I remember asking questions about a warrant that had to do with the IRS, and I don't remember.
And did Fred give you the same answer that he gave us?
Just what I remember him saying is that it was the mistake of the IRS. It was their mistake and not his, and he was current. And, you know, I wondered, well, obviously, who knows? But I mean, that was a question that was resolved. Oh, I don't know. We got the written documentation that caused us not to ask any questions that time any further. However.
All right, so we know where we're at. We
Yeah.
know where we're at. Dan just said there are things that he gets that are confidential that he needs to get. I get, and I understand that and appreciate that.
Just
What
to
about
give-
the things that aren't?
Give you another example, the UAN, the accounting software. You're supposed to be notified if 2 reconciliations aren't done. 2 consecutive reconciliations aren't done. Let's say I didn't reconcile January and February, you should be getting an email, a
Who should?
notice,
We should?
the board.
The trustees should?
Yes. But guess who checks the box to send that email?
The fiscal officer.
Guess what box wasn't checked?
Well, you would think maybe in Columbus,
You would
because
think.
there have been other situations throughout the state like
You would
this,
think.
that somebody hasn't corrected this for us at the state level.
Well,
So where do we go from here with that? I mean, I don't want to go through something like this again.
Well, I think, you know, this is something, we might be able to get help from the Ohio Township Association.
I would think. We should bring it up at the quarterly dinner.
Well, yeah, we could just, you know, send them, you know, just a generic question here. How do we make sure that, you know, know everything that's, you know, and they, you know, they may have come across this issue already.
What are other townships doing?
Yeah, so I think that'd be a good place to start. We pay our membership dues, and they have a pretty good staff for researching that type of thing. So I think that might be a good starting point.
Yeah, I think the OTA, Ohio Township Association, would be a good resource on this. You know, they're completely separate job descriptions, and I'm sure fiscal office comes with
I
some
understand
powers
that.
that we
Well,
don't have,
like I
and
said,
vice versa. But I just wonder why, you know, I don't want to say Fred, but the fiscal officer has to go before the budget commission couple times a year. You know, we've got things to file with the auditor's office. If you don't want to deal with his trustees, he should have to deal with the county auditor. So why is there an option on there, that box to be checked for notifications? Is anybody beyond the trustees or no? No.
And that's another
Just to
perfect
cover
example.
it.
Like I said, 1 week as a trustee, I get a call from a guy in Columbus that says things hadn't been filed. I'm the only guy that knows that. Nobody in Chardon knows that. I mean, obviously they don't get notified. And again, what I'm bringing up is, you're right, maybe there's the OTA and
Yeah.
that maybe we need to all work out this, because I know we're not the only township that's ever had this problem, and we're not gonna be the only township in the future that had this problem, but there ought to be a way to correct it at some point.
Well, there was a hole in communications. It may or may not have been deliberate. I don't know. I'm not gonna analyze the previous fiscal officer. But we got an issue right now that, we are in arrears. The IRS has notified us of $25,945.81. Is that correct, Dan? So I'm gonna make a motion that we issue that payment to the IRS and get that behind us, and then we can do policy procedures
Well,
after that.
I will say this before I second that motion, not only should we pay that money because we owe it, we should also go contact Otarma and have them go after our past fiscal officer to collect the penalty fees.
I would support you on that, but that's a separate motion.
That's second.
Yeah, I would support you on that. but
Would you
that's a
make that
different
motion after we do this
I will.
motion?
I will.
I'll second it.
Well, no, we got one on the table now, so.
Yeah, I'll second your motion.
Okay.
You make the simplest thing sound so confusing.
It's my nature. My wife says the same thing.
PJ,
I vote yes.
Gene,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes,
All right, so fiscal office is bonded, it's a bonded position, so I think we'd be kind of negligent to not at least look into what McCune was just talking about here. I think that's, there's no reason not to.
See, when he's mad, he calls me McHugh. He says, "Do you catch that?"
okay.
I'd call you worse than that, actually.
So do you want to handle that, this is a single entity for this particular IRS issue?
Or you want to fill in some
Well,
blanks
or
with
you wanna-
other stuff?
well,
You want to do an all-encompassing bulk of every
Absolutely.
penalty we've ever?
Absolutely. As Dan and I, from the beginning, when I realized Fred was doing this and we were checking, I told Fred and Joni, as they were working, to keep a list
Dan.
of everything we were, Dan, I'm sorry, everything we were behind on, to keep where we got penalized, a penalty because he was late, to keep those figures so we can go after him on all the penalties that we've incurred for everything that he didn't do. And I believe we can, since Otarma is our
Yeah.
insurance company, they're the people who can do it.
There is a bond, there is a bond on that position. I don't know personally where that comes, but there is a bond that's for these type of,
Well, I think if you would simply
so.
close your statement by saying, and that's my motion, you can get a second and we go on with our lives.
That's my motion.
Okay, I'll second that.
PJ,
Yes.
Gene,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
I think this is gonna
See,
involve some
listen,
some
listen.
contact with the county prosecutor's office on this too.
Yeah.
For
If we
sure.
go real fast, I think we're not doing our job. We gotta take more time.